Hello. That was a fancy transition, right? Just heard it there on my phone. Welcome to the Friday Live. Things looking a bit different today. Everybody, hello, welcome all you people joining the live stream. My name's Joel. This is going to be a fun one today. We got a very different show. The last few weeks have been very kind of Q&A heavy. This week we're doing a bit of a deep dive. Excuse me while I fuddle with my microphone. Let's start the show like we always start out. Welcome everybody tuning in. Hello. My name's Joel. Welcome to ToSalem Live Show. Let's start out this week with a new subscriber shout out. Let's see, we got some stuff. We'll start with Phil. Phil Burlington. This is what Phil's into. Music, costume stuff. Check out your subscribers here. Ted, nice. A little bit of witchy stuff. Welcome, Phil. We got, how do you pronounce this? Jillavanen. Jillavanen. Welcome. I'm sure I pronounced that exactly correct. Brad and Eric, is that like Tim and Eric? They have a lot of subscribers. I should probably know who they are, but I don't. Welcome, Jillavanen. Glad to have you, even though I can't pronounce your name. Next up, we got Mr. Ryan Novak. Got some subs. Looks like they are a reader. Cool. Ooh, atheist voice. Ooh, we got an atheist subscribing. I hope to change your mind, good sir. Probably won't, but I'm gonna try. Let's see who else we got new to the channel. We got, I've broken it all. New subs. Close the window. It's off to a good start. Bear with me. We got Rafael Alejandro Gomez Garcia. Good Lord, what a beautiful name. Welcome to the channel, Rafael Alejandro Gomez Garcia. I love this. Love your name, love your channel. Welcome. Last up, let's see, we got Jewelry. I see what you did there. It's jewelry. Oh, it's Jewel Jeffrey. I lied. Thought it was Jewelry. And I was about to praise you. And then one more, Ploget. Cool. 7 Days to Die. Is that a video game? I think it is. Welcome, one and all. Thanks to all the new subscribers. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here for the day. Something greater still. What's up in the chat? Lisa, what's up in the chat? Howdy. This is going to be a fun show. We're going to do some quick updates, and we're going to do an abbreviated Q&A this week because we actually got a big section at the end of the show that I want to talk about that relates to some stuff that I've been talking about the past few weeks. Got a little bit of an audio-visual presentation for you. If you are into the occult and witchcraft, you will definitely want to stick around until we get to that. Drinking whiskey this week, as usual. So let's start out with toast to you. Stay weird. Toast to Salem, weirdest place on earth. Love you all. Thanks for being here. Can't wait to spend about an hour or so with you today. Here's to you. All right. Let's do some quick updates on ToSalem. I mean, the biggest one by far is this interview that I did with Jesse Huntenberg, which if you have not watched it, I highly recommend you check it out. It's called Useful Magic. This is what it looks like. This is us talking right here. Jesse is a fantastic human. I had a blasty blast talking with her a few weeks back and posted the video earlier this week. We talk about all kinds of cool stuff in this interview. You should definitely check it out. She calls herself a mind witch, which is a term I've never heard before. Never heard before her anyway. She started calling herself that on her channel, which you should look up. It's in the link below this video if you want to check it out. We have, honestly, one of my favorite conversations that I've ever had about the esoteric. Some stuff you can see here down at the bottom that we get into is we're deep diving on divinity. We talk about transitions from atheists to somewhat pagan-y sorts of people, polytheists. We talk about mind witches. We talk about how to know when you've lost touch with material reality in the consensus realm. We talk about her coven. We get in the weeds, man. It was a great conversation. I've personally, I mean, I was in the interview and I've listened to it just 3 times for fun. So it's really, really good one to check out if you're looking for something to do later today or this weekend. Check out that interview. It's about an hour and a half. So that's the first big update we got. The second one was on the website. Let me show you that. This is really cool. We were thinking about making this. Oh, thank you for saying that. Something greater still. Really, really appreciate that. Saying something greater. Yeah, that conversation was one of my favorite things I've ever heard on the topic. I really appreciate that. Thank you so, so much. Check this out. This just went up on the website yesterday. This is a little kind of fun tribute that we did to Yule and Christmas. This is the Salem Witch Museum, which I have a figure of. It fell off my bookshelf as I was getting ready for the show today, or I'd show you. But the Salem Witch Museum, you know, look it up in a Google search. It's the most iconic building in Salem. And this is what it looks like. We were going to do videos on these, but instead we decided we're just going to do site content. And basically this is teaching you how to make this Yule and Christmas ornament at home with a dough that you can make very quickly. We got the ingredients on there. We got everything measured out. We got a template that you print and then you lay over the dough and you cut it out. And then you make the windows with red hard candy and you melt it in the oven. Really, really cool little project. Check that out. Go to ToSalem.com and on the front page there, I think it's on the bottom left. Yeah, right there. Get to that. Check it out. Very, very, very cool. Also, in the world of ToSalem, I am sad to announce this is going to be the last live stream of the year. This is the last one. Following Christmas, there's probably going to be another podcast released. I won't tell you with who yet, but it's another sort of neo-pagan-y. This one's more in the realm of Wicca podcast interview that I did, and it is very, very dense and cool. But this is going to be the last live stream of the year. I'm going to be coming back in January. Part of the reason I'm doing that is because if you've been watching the live streams for the past few weeks, you know that coming up in January, something really, really cool and big is happening. And that is that now in late January, the release date has gotten moved. It was January 15th. Now it's January 29th. On January 29th, probably one of the coolest things I've ever done is happening. On January 29th, there's going to be, I'll show you the pages here, a 5-hour long event that you're all cordially invited to. Please do come check it out. About a 5-hour long event, the night of January 29th. This event is going to be a fully fledged out presentation premiere of an audio series that's been in the works for the past few weeks. If you have listened to the Salem Witch Trials audio drama called Salem's Ghosts here on the channel, a lot of the people who did that are coming back to do this. But this is a series. It's a 6-episode long series. It's very horror-y. It's very kind of true crimey. Lisa, you're gonna miss it, but look forward to in January. Totally cool, Lisa. It's totally cool. I'll probably send you stuff just because you're awesome. I'll probably send you stuff anyway. But as a part of this premiere, basically we're showing the entire audio series. It's 6 episodes long. It takes place in 2021 and 1941, and it doesn't have anything to do with Salem Witch Trials. It's a completely new story that is based on a real unsolved murder that took place around Salem, Massachusetts in 1941. It is way out there. It is very esoteric. It is very, I would say, chaotic. It's a very character-centered piece with some really cool characters, actors who brought it all to life. It's a full audio series, full cast, sound effects, the whole shebang, one long storyline that continues over the course of 6 episodes, and we're going to be premiering them all in order that night only. But also, I have 3 pages here of things that we're also doing on that night. The reason it's 5 hours long, the actual series should only take about 3 hours. The rest of it is events. Between every single episode, we're gonna have a combination of live events and featurettes that the audience can bounce between and kind of check out whatever they want to check out. Some of these featurettes are like, the making of the episode you just heard. Some of them are the making of the series in total. Some of them are based on the actual historical murder and the haunting. And then we got live events. Ron Martin, who has been on the podcast, you can check out his Salem Witch podcast episode. He's kind of a Salem expert and a Salem history expert. He's going to be coming on to talk with us for about 5 or 10 minutes about Salem's haunted history, including but not limited to the ghosts from the Salem witch trials. So we're going to do that. A bunch of the cast is going to come on for some Q&As, stuff like that, and really cool like little events that are related to what you heard. Speaking of that, we're also making a bunch of merch. Been on the phone all morning. The team here at ToSalem has been on the phone all morning and designing stuff. We got all kinds of cool merch for like the first 100, I think is what we're going to do. First 100 people who buy tickets. Comps are pretty much dried up, but if you're watching this and you do want a comp, you could probably go ahead and email me, joel@tosalem.com, and I'd probably give you one. But comps are pretty much dried up, but now what we're shifting to is the first 100 people that buy tickets to this thing are going to get merch that's exclusive to this night only. So it's a very cool, we're doing something different. Like people around it, the AD and the PR guy and all that, have started calling it like innovative. I didn't really mean for it to be that, but I guess, yeah, I don't really know that anyone's done this. I'm thinking of it very much like Alamo Drafthouse. It's very much like the old school movie lovers kind of thing. Everything that's going to happen that night is done with love and joy and celebration of this thing that we've all made, of this really rad, interesting, esoteric story, and of all the things that went into making it. So it's going to be a fun, joyful, interesting, cool night. Lisa, are coffee mugs on the merch list? Really looking for a new one. Sure. Yeah, they will be. Drop me a line. Send me an email. Lisa, I don't think I have your email. Send me an email, Joel, Joel @tosalem.com. I'll get you a coffee mug. Let's go for it. Why not? Yeah, so merch like coffee mugs, stickers, pins, stuff like that. We're making that sort of stuff exclusive to the premiere. And yeah, if you want any of that, email me. I'll let you know what's up. If you want a ticket, email me, let you know what's up. The tickets aren't available for sale yet, but they will be shortly. I can go ahead and throw you on the list to let you know when they will be for sale. Hit me up on that. All right. That was a loud scream. I apologize. That's it for the ToSalem updates. We got a very short Q&A section this week because we got a long sort of main beefy presentation that you're going to want to stick around for. So I'm just going to kind of breeze through these Q&As here. Rebecca. What's up, Becca? She asks, I know you're from the South. I am, Tennessee. Do you have any experience with hill witchcraft? No. Beyond having read that folk magic, was that book that came out a few years ago? I think it was a Llewellyn book, maybe. I read the ebook of that, but that's pretty much it. Of course, there's whispers of people in my family that were involved in some form of hill witchery, but nothing that I could say for sure that I've actively been a part of. But I wish I had. It's fascinating to me. Jason asks, what's your favorite Salem attraction? I wish this was a harder question. Like, I wish I had to really struggle, but as soon as I read it, I knew it. I think it's always this one. It's Count Orlok's Nightmare Gallery. It's one of the few Salem attractions. I would go in there right now, just to go there, even though, nothing's changed since the last time I was there. I'd go hang out just in the shop. I'd go through the exhibit. Count Orlok's, can't beat it in my book. Of course, I love Gables. I love the Witch House. I love the historical ones too, but I rarely ever want to go back to those. Orlok's I want to go back to all the time. It's just the coolest. It's one of the best wax museums I've ever been to, and easily my favorite attraction in Salem. Jewel asks, what's your sign? I like this question because it's quick. And it's a quick answer. We're doing quick questions and answers today. Jewel, my sign is I'm a Cancer, but I'm not just a Cancer. I'm what's known as a Grand Water Trine, which basically means that on the day I was born, a bunch of major astrological celestial bodies in my sky were positioned toward water signs. So if you know anything about water in typical Western esotericism, you know that water typically is a reference to emotion, intuition, the imagination, the subconscious, stuff like that. So because I'm a Grand Water Trine, that basically means that I'm the most emotional, subconsciously motivated, imaginative weirdo you're going to come across. And I would say if you ask the loved ones in my life, they would probably all agree with that. Some of whom are in the chat. I'm an absolutely insane person. All right, that's it. That's all we're going to do for Q&A. There are a bunch of Q&As that are waiting for the new year when the live stream comes back. If you want to be among them, email me, joel@ToSalem.com. And you can have your very own question answered here on the live stream. See what value I provide you? All right, let's jump in. I'm so excited to jump into this. Drum roll. What's the topic du jour? What is this deep dive we're going on? And how is it connected to all the stuff that I've been talking about over the past few weeks? Boom. There it is. This is what we're talking about today. All right. Hope you can all see it here on screen. Let me check and make sure so I'm not acting like there's something happening that's not. Let's switch to this one. Ooh, transitions. Look at that. He's getting snazzy, this Joel. I'm talking about myself in the third person now. We're talking chaos magic today, ladies and gents, but we're not just talking chaos magic. We're talking a very specific part of chaos magic that is connected to a lot of people who are tuning into this Friday chat are tuning in because of a video I released a few weeks ago on ritual magic. And so I've kind of decided to bring you all along on these Friday live chats for the journey that I am currently going on. So this is just for you, the hardcore fans. Chaos magic. We're talking about chaos magic as kind of a follow-up to that ritual magic video. So if you've not watched that, I encourage you to go check it out. You can still watch this video, stay here for the live, go watch that after. They're kind of connected to each other. How is going to become clearer as we move forward. So what I want to do today on the live stream is, first off, if you got any questions about chaos magic, put them in the chat. I want to talk about them. We're using a primary source today, which is around this room somewhere. Everything collapsed like 2 minutes before I started recording today. And so I have zero idea where anything is. But it's condensed chaos, somewhere around here. Phil Hines condensed chaos. That's our primary source for today. It is one of the primary sources for chaos magic, period. Another would be Peter Carroll's Liber Null, which is also around here somewhere. I found it. There it is. This is my copy of Condensed Chaos. You can see here beautiful highlighting and writing in the margins and just general destruction. Eden, before I watched your ritual magic video, I'd never heard of anyone else talk about splitting off different parts of self. I do that too. Condensed Chaos is an excellent primer. We're about to talk about that, Eden. Good call. We're going to talk about that specific part of Condensed Chaos. All right, let's jump in. So what we're going to do today, we're going to start with just a general overview of chaos magic. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how chaos magic ties into this sort of world that I'm starting to explore and how I'm going to be utilizing it going forward to explore some of the ideas that were brought up in the ritual magic video. All right, let's dive in. It's like you're at school. Don't you feel glad to be here? Isn't school just the place you always wanted to be? All right, let's talk about the history. So, chaos magic mostly came together, coalesced in the 1970s and onward, but the influences behind it stretch back literally centuries before that. It draws largely on a lot of Western esoteric schools that predate it. We're talking Golden Dawn, we're talking Thelema, we're talking Blavatsky. All of those ceremonial magicians chaos magic is drawing from, in addition to some art movements and other people. Some of the biggest personal influences were Aleister Crowley. Now, Crowley, I say it Crowley because I just like it that way. I've been corrected though. Crowley people like, but I like Crowley. I don't know, it sounds more witchy to me. Aleister Crowley, what his influence on chaos magic was largely cultural, in that, you know, what's really interesting about Crowley, among other things, is that he lived a life that was distinctly different than most magicians of his time. He allowed himself in a lot of ways to become a cultural artifact and even promoted it. You know, he welcomed that mantle of the wickedest man to ever live. And so later, when people start using his iconography, thinking the Beatles specifically, when people start using his iconography, it's totally in line with how he lived his life and what he ultimately wanted. He saw, I think, that sort of cultural mystique was its own form of power. And so he leaned into it hard. All right, so that's his big role in chaos magic is that idea, freedom and magic. That was also a definite influence. Austin Osman Spare, artist whose work was brought back to light by Kenneth Anger, an artist whom I personally very much adore, and whose work I'm basically ripping off in everything I ever do. Austin Osman Spare is a visual artist. He go in Google right now, open up a new window and just search for him and his art, and you'll see a hugely influential guy, and we'll talk about specifically how later. Peter Carroll, who wrote Liber Null, which is around here, seminal original text of chaos magic. Robert Anton Wilson, writer, thinker, magician, hugely influential, big fan of chaos itself, chaos as a narrative construct, chaos as a worldview. Discordianism, which is also kind of chaotic worldview, art movement, philosophical movement, which is like a movement, but with an U in it, and a series of British occult magazines that were released starting around the 1970s. So this is how it comes to be, all right? All these things coalesce together. Hail Eris, that's right, Discord, Eden. All these things sort of coalesce to create what becomes chaos magic. All right, I know I'm okay. If you're a chaos magician, I'm yada-yadaing a lot of this because I really want to get to the magical stuff. So yeah, all right. What's it all about? First, everything's on the table. When you look at this beast right here, the Golden Dawn. Look at these lists of correspondences, symbols, pages and pages and pages of esoteric thought and symbolism. Some people look at this and they say, that's a lot of rules. That's a lot of things I got to memorize and then adhere to. And a lot of chaos magicians would tend to agree with that. With chaos magic, everything is on the table, including Golden Dawn stuff, including thelematic stuff, including Wiccan stuff, satanic stuff, but also cultural stuff. Nothing is off limits in chaos magic, all right? Everything is available for chaos magicians to use to suit whatever their purposes are. Second big influence is chaos science and mathematics. Probably the biggest thing that we all share as a common reference point that comes out of this is like the butterfly effect, right? This idea that things are linked in non-linear ways, that in the real world, in the material world, that things are linked, but they're not necessarily linked in linear, easy to understand, or even easy to see ways. And this quote here on the right, I think, does a good job of pointing that out. Chaos. And this is a chaos mathematics quote, by the way. When the present determines the future, but the approximate present does not approximately determine the future. So let's break it down. When the present determines the future, our brain immediately goes to linear, right? Or at least mine does. It goes to chaos determines future. If I stand up out of my chair and I begin walking 10 feet that way, I will be in my kitchen in 2 seconds time. Linear, right? But then the second half of this quote undermines that. It says, but the approximate present does not approximately determine the future. So what if I stand up, I walk in there, and I stub my toe? Well, then 2 seconds later or whatever, I'm not in that room. I'm holding my bleeding toe, wondering why my mother's genes are so clumsy. I think clumsiness comes from the genes, and if it doesn't, it should. So this idea that while the future is determined by the present, they're not as linearly linked as we want to believe they are, is at the bedrock of pretty much all chaos theory. And from this, you've got something called fractal logic. Something greater still, the book that I just held up, The Golden Dawn. Bloop. Let me get so I can see myself on camera. I don't tend to keep myself up because I don't like to be able to see myself. It's The Golden Dawn by Israel Ragardi. Looks like that. Big, fat, juicy thing. Expensive book, but if you are at all interested in the history of Western ritual magic, it is kind of a must-own, in my opinion. So there you go. There's the book. All right, so this brings us to fractal logic. Fractal logic is basically, if you know what fractals are, what they look like, they're these weird sort of symbols that when you zoom into them, they contain, it is a big honking book, they contain the symbol that you just saw on many, many smaller and smaller levels, basically. The zoomed out, the macrocosm looks very similar to the microcosm in fractals. And fractal math is similar, right? It's a very head trippy space to be in, but fractal logic is very similar. It's basically this idea of approximate relationship to things, and things not necessarily being linear in our day-to-day waking life. That things are connected, but they're connected in such strange, obscure ways that it's not maybe so easy to see how everything is connected. And that you have these complex hierarchies. The most famous example is by far is the butterfly flapping its wings in China or whatever causes a typhoon in Brazil. I don't know what the exact example is, but you get the idea that a butterfly flaps its wings, the gust of wind blows a bit of pollen off of a flower. That bit of pollen then goes on and lands on a tree. That is just the exact amount of weight that that tree needs. It's old and it's falling apart. That's the exact amount of weight that it needs to tumble over. It tumbles over, it lands into a river that then causes a swell. Downstream, that swell has gotten bigger and now it's carrying mud and soot under it. All of that is pushing towards the mouth of the river into the Indian Ocean. And into this Indian Ocean, it causes a down swell. It causes some sort of undercurrent to happen, which disrupts the tidal flow of the Indian Ocean a little bit. But that's enough to then cause a sort of seismic occurrence under the water. And that seismic occurrence ends up slowly gathering power and steam over the tidal currents that connect the entire world. And then fast forward a few weeks, you've got a huge cataclysmic event hitting the shores of Brazil that began with that butterfly flapping its wings. If you want to go even farther, began with that butterfly being born, which means that it began literally at the beginning of time, if you want to go back even farther. Check out the synchronicity bit of the interview with Jesse Huntenberg if you want a little bit of a little bit more of an explanation of that sort of thinking. But this idea that things are connected through hierarchical structures, but that those structures aren't linear necessarily, is at the bedrock of all chaos theory. Chaos magic is no different. And then finally you have magical freedom. All right, magical freedom is basically, similar to this Golden Dawn thing I just held up. It's basically the idea that you can draw, and you should draw, from any magical tradition that suits your purposes in the moment. Now, that does not mean that you go around willy-nilly tossing out magical systems and bringing them in at will, playing with them and getting rid of them. Common misconception about chaos magic, or at least its original form. We'll talk about that more in a bit. But crucially, thank you, Lisa, the magical freedom here also means that you're not bound to magical systems necessarily either. You have cultural systems. You have yes, also Eden, very good point. Cultural appropriation, not cool. You have cultural systems that you can play with. You have religious systems you can play with. That the whole worldview really that you find yourself in is for your purview in some way. It's for your discernment to decide what you want to pull from to use in your own magical working. Alrighty. Next up, I love this little GIF. Yeah, not everything's up for grabs, Eden. That's a good point. But a lot of that's moral. We'll come back to that in a bit, Eden. I love this GIF because this is a very famous GIF in chaos magic or chaos mathematics. I could watch this thing for hours. Basically, the point of what we're watching here is we're seeing randomness occur in a visual space. And if you move any position of this little, dual pole arm thing we're looking at here now, you get an entirely different result. This is a pattern that doesn't repeat in a way that's totally predictable, right? And you see this in this reminds me of those spirograph things you used to play with when you were a kid. If you if you want like tactile representations of the chaotic, those things are a great thing to play with, because while they do stick to a certain form, I mean, try and do the exact same pattern over the exact same pattern with those, and you'll never be able to do it. This is why. All right. So that's a little bit of chaos science, chaos magic, or chaos math. Now let's look at some chaos magical tenets. All right. The first and the biggest, I would say, chaos magic is focused on personal development, discipline, and sacrifice. Again, all the quotes that you're going to see from here on out are from this book right here, Condensed Chaos by Phil Hine. I think it's a great intro. If you want more of an intro, check out Liber Null. But Chaos, I think Condensed Chaos is kind of a better one for just getting your feet wet. Okay, quote, "The ability to perform advanced acts of magic requires years of effort. The passage of time allows us to grow, to create our own codes of ethics and honors, forming the roots of our power and the bedrock upon which we build our magical reality. The powerful magician stands alone in the crowd. Many yearn for this state, feeding the ego with feelings of superiority. The adept magician, who feels his separateness all too keenly, is more likely to mourn the loss of innocence, if only secretly. One cannot shape the world without being reshaped in the process. Each gain of power requires its own sacrifice. The game of magical consequences never ends." Apologies for typos. I was putting this together quickly. Okay, let's break this down a bit. Personal development, right? The personal development you can see here, using magic as a way to develop self. Discipline. The beginning of this is talking about time. It's talking about that it takes years of work. This is a lot of people new to chaos magic, I think, get this wrong. Chaos magic very much is about discipline. It's not about willy-nilly. It's about discipline. It takes years. But then sacrifice. I love this idea. This is so resonant with me. When I read it in the book first time, 3 highlights, 5 notes in the margin. I mean, I just went nuts. I'm going to read it again. "The adept magician who feels his separateness all too keenly is more likely to mourn the loss of innocence, if only secretly." I'm going to tell you guys a story. Story time. The last time I went to New York City was kind of a sad day, because I'd been going into New York City a lot for work stuff, but I kind of knew it was at an end. I had moved, so I was riding a longer train ride into the city, and I'm riding it. And as I'm riding this train, which goes through a lot of like woods, as I'm riding this train through some woods and like over the ocean and stuff, it suddenly occurs to me, and I whip out my journal and I write like 7 pages, because all of a sudden, what I believe, which I had been thinking about for probably months up to that point, actively thinking about almost every day, it suddenly occurred to me that what I believed about the nature of my place in the cosmos suddenly crystallized. It crystallized. A missing piece fell into place in my mind. For what reason, I have no idea, but it was overwhelming. It completely consumed me for a moment. Just writing. I got it all out. I rewrote, I got it all out. And then eventually I ended up with about a page of just succinct, in order, this is what makes sense to me. This was only like a year and a half ago. It's pretty recent. I closed the journal. I'm looking out the window on this train, and I feel on my cheek tears. And I wipe one away, and like it's happening now. My chest is getting heavy, my throat's getting tight. This sense of sadness overcame me. Then I couldn't have articulated it, I don't think. I just knew that I felt something like ending. Something sad was happening, because something that I very much enjoyed was now over, because I had made some decisions that I felt were built upon a solid enough foundation that I couldn't just disrobe myself of them. Feels his separateness all too keenly. I don't think that that's true just on the strict material realm. Like, of course, if you're interested in witchcraft and you're interested in magic, you're going to feel your separateness from this world. You know, like, it is not for people like us to rise and get success in this kind of world. Like, you're not going to see a chaos magician or an outward chaos magician running for president anytime soon or heading up some giant social media empire. It just doesn't happen. So there's that, but I actually think that's like the less nuanced way to understand this. The separateness that you feel can also be this mourning of a loss of innocence, right? Because now you know. Like let's just a lot of people who are watching this probably have already done this, but let's just walk this through, okay? Let's say that you have been interested in witchcraft, you've been interested in magic for a while, and you start to explore it. And you do what we all do, which is you watch like The Craft or whatever, Sabrina, and you think that that's witchcraft. You think that that's magic. You think that that's how magic works. So then you start to read about it, and you start to do some of it, and you find very quickly that that is not how it works. that is a metaphorical representation of what is actually happening. And what is actually happening is much more subtle, and it's much more contextual, and it's much more individual. It's much more related to you. Oftentimes you are the only one who is aware of your magic because you're the only one who completely understands all the shapes of it, right? So you get that understanding. The feeling that can come from that is a sense of isolation, separateness. It's weird, but it's been true in my experience. You lose a bit of innocence because you've gained some knowledge about the shape of the cosmos and your role in it that is irrevocable. You know it now. You know, when I've had people ask me, like, do you think, and this is especially true on like witch talk, do you think that some people should not engage with this stuff? And my answer is yes. Unequivocally yes. Not because you might summon a demon that's gonna, you know, cause harm to someone across the world. Not that. But because you will do things to yourself that you may not be ready for. They may be irrevocable. So it is dangerous, right? And it is isolating, and or can be isolating. And losing that innocence does hurt a little. Some comments, let's see. We are the weirdos, Mr. Still rings true. Yes, yes, yes. I feel like I'm depressed cycle totally based on hitting a point of saturation in my understanding. I know there's much more. I sometimes wonder if those ceilings come from needing to transition my focus into healing my traumas / attachments, wounds / unconscious fears to make more space to open more to the mystery. Whoa, something greater still. All right, let's walk through this before we continue down the chaos magic train. What I would say to that, I've totally been in that cycle, at least conceptually. I wonder, the thing that gets me out, there's two things that get me out really, as though energy gets stuck in areas that are wrapped up in somatic tension, childhood, etc., that once get reintegrated. How much of your practice in the esoteric, I would ask you, make space for it. Yeah, how much of your practice in the esoteric is high magic and how much is low magic in the traditional sense of those terms, which we're going to talk about in a bit, I think makes a big difference. This is another thing that came up in the interview with Jessie, if you want to go check that out. She has a more interesting way to look at it. But basically, the distinction between high and low magic is that low magic is for getting things that you want, and high magic is for surrendering to reality itself. I know that when I get locked in those depressive sort of cycles within the esoteric, it's often because I've not been giving myself enough space to embrace that higher magic, which is receptive and not will-based. It's just about opening. It's not asking for anything, it's just about opening. So I would say that maybe you need some ecstatic high magic experiences, drum circles, trance work, you know, whatever resonates with you. Maybe try some of those things and see what happens. That would be the first thing I would try. And then, yeah, if you do need to reconcile those traumas, I get that. I get that, sister. And I don't know that I've ever, if I'm honest, if I'm entirely honest, I don't know how much in the world of the esoteric self-guided trauma reconciliation I've done. I've done a lot in therapeutic spaces, for sure, but I don't know that I've ever actively sought to reconcile traumas through shadow work through magical shadow work directly. So that I would try that. Try some ecstatic high magic stuff, and then if that doesn't work, I think about shadow work. I'd look into shadow work. Okay, let's keep going through this quote here. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. One cannot shape the world without being reshaped in the process. God, that's true. Woof. One cannot shape the world without being reshaped in the process. Lord have mercy. I'm just going to leave that lingering there because I think it's powerful enough on its own. Each gain of power requires its own sacrifice. Game of magical consequences never ends. All right? So that's one tenet. Another big one in chaos magic is detachment. They don't call it detachment generally, but it feels like detachment to me. This is about detaching oneself from previously held beliefs. Okay? This is about taking honest stock of where you're at in your life, what you believe about the nature of your life and the world around you, and examining where those beliefs came from and if they're serving you. And then if they're not, seeking out new beliefs that are most useful to the purposes of the magician. Chaos magicians examine and change out beliefs as if they are constructing something. This is what I've noticed. They treat themselves as a form of working. And they do that by trading out these beliefs, not willy-nilly. It's the result of a long process of self-exploration. Conducting magical workings tailored directly to one's desires and centered on whichever deity set one chooses. And there are a bunch of tools in chaos magic that help you find which deity or cultural figure or archetype or whatever it is that's going to help you get to wherever you're trying to get, to reconcile or get whatever it is you're trying to get. All right? So detachment's a big part of it, finding newer belief structures that work better for you. Then you have the inherent interdependence of all things. We talked about this a little bit in the chaos science bit, but chaos magic recognizes that all things are interdependent. That butterfly flapping its wings in India and causing the tsunami in Brazil, such is the way of all life. Your life, my life. We have been trained, especially in the West, to think that reality works on this linear scale, because if it works on this linear scale, well, if not to get too conspiratorial or Russell Brand on you, but if life works in this linear way, that really suits the interests of the powerful, don't it? If things are contextual, if life is complicated, if you can't directly trace a line between things, it makes you less apt to be manipulated. If you open yourself up to a world that is complicated and nuanced and things impacting things that you can't necessarily, and everything becoming fluid and dynamic and interesting, boy, that makes you hard to manipulate. I'm not saying it makes you smarter or cleverer or more intellectual. It just makes you kind of zoom out from your direct experience a little bit. And that little bit of zooming out that you do is you sort of noticing something happening in your life and saying, instead of immediately going into a response and a reaction, you've got a little buffer now. And that little buffer is, well, that's interesting. And you're noticing it. And you're thinking about it a little. And maybe you're thinking about the things that could have caused it. But you're not necessarily immediately emotionally reacting to anything because you know that things are complex. So you're giving yourself a buffer in your life and you're allowing the interdependence of reality and the complicated nature of reality to have a little bit of space in your daily life. When you do that, that means that when a politician or a company or a religious leader tries to tell you that this is the way things are and this is what you must do because this is the way things are, you've got that little buffer. And you're more inclined to be like, okay, maybe this is the way things are. Maybe it just suits you to say that this is the way things are. Maybe things aren't actually this way, but you've been programmed to think they're this way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I am. You see, all these new thoughts come up that distinguish you and separate you from these manipulating influences. So I know that's a little conspiratorial, but there you go. Much of chaos magic's workings are rooted in establishing magical systems that facilitate and work with such interdependence. This is one of my favorite things about chaos magic. There's a great example on one of my favorite podcasts that I highly recommend you check out, Weird Studies. Very, very good podcast. On that show, they were talking about chaos magic in one episode, and one of the hosts did a ritual working, a chaos magic ritual working, for a large sum of money. All right? So they do the working, they kind of forget about it. A few weeks later, in the mail, out of the blue, they get a check. They open the check, and it's for $2. but printed on the check where the little box is that has the amount that it's printed for, the numerical value, like $2.19, 2.19, the word sum is huge. So the hilarious thing about this is they got a large sum of money. It just wasn't actually much money. This sort of humorous nature of the universe and its interaction with you, a sort of tongue-in-cheek relationship between you and magical working, you and divinity, you and the myriad constructs of reality, is at the bedrock of chaos magic. It comes largely from Discordianism, but a lot of chaos magicians would say that they've done rituals and had similarly hilarious things happen to them as a result, because it seems like, I think many chaos magicians would say, it seems like not only is the universe listening, but the universe is kind of laughing. And I love that. I think that's so cool. And the idea that rituals themselves are meant to lean into this interdependence instead of doing a direct, intent and response and result. A lot of chaos magic ritual work, at least the ones that are rooted in chaos magic itself, have to do with facilitating an interdependent system, which will then bring things to you that are not so cut and dry as like A plus B equals C, more like, well, if I put A, B, C, D, E, and F together and I boil it together in a stew and I create G, then I send G out into the world. G will then maybe bring back these subtle influences back to me. I love this. I love this. I love this. Cosmic jokes abound. Comments. Eden says, personally, I work with what comes to me, and especially with what I feel initial resistance to, like deity. I find that when I'm like, no, I don't believe that, playing with it reveals something new. And when I feel solid and set in one paradigm, another one comes calling, saying, you have more to learn. God, what a, I think a lot about regenerative processes. I really do. In all aspects of my life. I'm fortunate. I'm so fortunate. I'm so grateful. I live a life of boundless creative expansion, especially now. I'm working with people on a daily basis who are creative. I'm making things that are creative. Around me, my life is getting increasingly more and more and more about creativity. And what happens as a result of that is this thing that you're talking about, Eden. You end up, if you set yourself a scope, right? If you say, I have to do this creative work by this time, what that turns you into is sort of an idea consumer, because you're constantly looking, you're constantly open, you're constantly curious, you're constantly creating. It is such a cool space to be in, and it does lead to the same process, Eden. I totally feel you. The process of settling into a paradigm and then something else appearing and pushing you in a different direction. It's almost manic, which suits me fine. Lisa says, Eden agrees, past information you learn may not make much sense then, but a new piece of information may give you the aha moment. Yeah, I never really saw too much of a distinction between high and low magic until that interview with Jessie. I'd read about it a bunch, but when she put it the way she put it, that she has a separation in her practice, one that is meant for will-based stuff and one that is meant for communion with the divine, and that the will-based stuff was outward and forward momentum and go, and the receptive divine stuff was sit, meditate, wonder, think. It just clicked for me. It was like, oh. So yeah, sometimes you get this new idea or an old idea presented in a different way, and it just kicks off this understanding that you had no access to before. Okay, so speaking of this idea of chaos magic creating interdependent ritual work, the most prominent example I would say is servitor creation. Again, this is quoting from Condensed Chaos. A servitor is an entity consciously created or generated using evocatory techniques to perform a task or service. Such entities are sometimes referred to as thought forms or tulpas. I've done this. I've done servitor work. And I will say of servitor work, the thing that I wanted did not occur. But the sort of headspace that I need to be in to get to what I was trying to do did. So basically, when I did it, I set out a very material, tangible, clearly stated intent that had a measurable result attached to it. When the time came, that measurable result did not occur, and the reappearance of that servitor did not occur by the end date. I set an end date for that servitor work, and it didn't occur. But what did occur is when that end date rolled around and that material thing had not happened, my brain on that day changed, because I went to the spot where I did the ritual work. I went and found the materials that I buried out in the space. I dug them up, and many of them weren't there. Some of them were destroyed. They'd been left in the ground for a long period of time. Animals had gotten to them. And sitting there in the ruins of this ritual space, it occurred to me exactly why it didn't happen, and it wasn't magical. It was me. My head was not where it needed to be. Not only that, I knew enough to start going in the direction that I needed to go to get the thing that I wanted to get. So from that vantage point, the servitor did work. It just didn't work in the way that I asked it to. And I thanked it and I blessed it. And from my money, servitors, like a lot of things it seems in chaos magic, work in ways that you don't expect, bring you things that you don't really expect, but are ultimately linked to, in this giant cosmic interdependent web, linked to the thing that you wanted. So there's a few things like that in chaos magic. Servitors are one of the coolest magical things I've ever come across. Self-work is a big part of this. Much of chaos magic is centered on tracking progress in the self, and they have a bunch of practices that are advocated across the sort of foundational chaos magic texts that help you to facilitate that. You got magical journeying, intensifying one's sensitivity, upholding a sense of honor, building confidence, increasing one's capacity for organization, shifting perceptions, dream journaling, etc. So I would say chaos magicians tend to have a kind of scientific, clinical view of their magical working, or at least the results of their magical working. The good thing about that is that memory I just told you about working with the servitor, I wasn't actually remembering, as I was recounting to you there, the event itself. I was remembering when I journaled about it. Interesting, isn't it? I wonder if I would have remembered the sequencing of events, the results of the ritual work, without that chronicling of it. Because when I was recalling it just now, I remembered the chronicling, not the thing itself. Or I remembered the chronicling of it first. So chaos magicians have a bunch of stuff like this. Eden says, depending on how much you work with / feed the thought form, they start to give you what you need, not what you asked for. Making D&D characters has been a great way for me to create thought forms. Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit in a bit about deity, quote unquote, in chaos magic. But yes, I totally agree. And actually, I'm kind of winding toward a similar place there myself, Eden. What chaos magicians do. This is the next section we got here. Low and high magic. We talked about this, but let's just point out in condensed chaos how the distinction is drawn. Quote, traditionally the use of magical techniques for direct results has been thought of as low magic, while the quest for spiritual growth was high magic. This distinction perpetuated the division of the world into matter versus spirit, subjective versus objective. For the chaos magicians, such a distinction is artificial and very much a sign of self-limitation. So now we get to this bit where chaos magicians don't necessarily draw that distinction between low and high magic, or at least in these foundational texts they don't. I don't know that I am totally on board with this. I noticed that a lot of the stuff that I kind of have a problem with in chaos magic is stuff that's derived from, I would say, a punk sort of Discordianism. Now, it might just be because I've got gray in my sideburns now. Next, we've got sigil magic. Let's talk about sigil magic. All right, peace out, Eden. You're the best. See you later. I'll see you in 2021. Art imitates life, life imitates art. Yeah, we're about to get there. You're all ahead of me. Slow down. Sigil making. All right, this is another form of chaos magic that has to do with relying on the interdependence of reality. So basically, this comes from Austin Osman Spare. And what you do is you write out an intent. You get a piece of paper and you say, there's a great, by the way, go into Google and search Grant Morrison Dragon Con and watch him give a drunken rant at Dragon Con about sigil making. It's brilliant. You'll fall in love with them just like I did if you aren't in love with them already. You take a piece of paper, you write down, it is my will that XYZ happens. You take out all the vowels. You take out all the repeating consonants so that what you're left with is a string of consonants, none of which repeat. You then take those consonants and you draw them into a symbol that looks magical. You do that over and over again until the symbol feels sufficiently magical. If you want an example of what one looks like, you can watch the Bridget Bishop video or Tituba Part 2 here on the channel. Those both open with a sigil. And yes, there is more magic on ToSalem that has not been pointed out quite yet. So feel free to go on a deep dive and see what else is in there, subtextually, subconsciously. All right, so you make it into a magical symbol. You then charge that symbol. All right, charging is about putting energy into a symbol. There's some classical ways to do it. You can literally burn it. You can engage in some sort of physical activity involving fluids, blood, semen, urine, spit. All kinds of stuff has been used for this. You can just focus on it in a ritualistic fashion and focus all your energy on it. But the point is that you put as much energy onto the symbol as you can, and then you use it in a ritual working, or you forget about it, either way. And you let the iconoclastic nature of the symbol itself work on you and the reality around you in that interdependent way. Sigil making is probably the most famous, I would say, probably the most famous chaos magic tool there is. Lisa says, I wonder what level of emotion you put into the working. Strong emotion tends to create a strong memory. Magic is about energy. Emotion is about strong energy, in my opinion. Yeah, that's probably true. When I did that ritual, that servitor ritual, it was like 15 degrees outside. The ground was frozen. It was very hard to be out there. And so I was probably not as into it as I could have been. And I was also struggling to remember stuff. I don't really think I was fully ready for the ritual, which again, humbles me because it did end up changing my mind ultimately, which did end up leading to the thing that I was looking for in the first place. Or actually, no, the truer way to say that is it ended up leading me toward realizing that I didn't want the thing that I asked for in the first place. That's what actually happened. I did the ritual, the date comes and passes when the thing is supposed to occur. It doesn't occur. I go back to the ritual space. I'm sitting there, I'm seeing the ruins of the ritual, and it starts to occur to me that not only is my mind not in the right place to have had that thing, but also that I don't really think that that thing is the thing that I want. From there, from that day, all other things, including this live stream right now, springs. So yeah, I probably wasn't in the space to even know what my will purely was in order to do that ritual. This whiskey's kicking in. I'm sorry if I'm slurring my words a bit. I probably wasn't in a place to even really know what my will was. So I definitely wasn't in as heightened a place as I could have been, as focused a place as I could have been to do the ritual, but it still kind of worked. So later, when I wrote about it, I was in a better place. So you might have a point there, Lisa. Moving on, standard magic. These are just things that you see in chaos magic that are drawn from other magical systems. You've got divination, meditation, evocation, and invocation, mask magic, banishing, and pretty much everything else. Because again, everything's on the table with chaos magic. This is the section I've been wanting to get to. So why do I care? Why did I bring you through this, 45-minute rant about chaos magic? And what is this terrifying realization? When I made that ritual magic video, I kind of looked down on chaos magic a little bit. Because again, I don't really respond to the nihilistic punk sort of Discordian thing. I know that's not all Discordian, but there's definitely that element. And there's that element in chaos magicians too. But here's the realization. In going back after doing that video and rereading Condensed Chaos and rereading Liber Null, I stumbled upon the fact that what I was talking about in that ritual magic video is very well-trodden ground within chaos magic. And I've yet to see it be well-trodden anywhere else. So the terrifying realization is that in some ways I should have given much more stock to chaos magic before I made that video and done a deeper dive before that, because if I had, I would have realized that the thing that I was talking about, the things that I am looking for, are almost all squarely within the realm of chaos magic. Let's get into it. Many selves. This is a quote from Condensed Chaos. If you watch the ritual magic video, you'll know that I'm interested in many selves, all right? Quote, one idea that is becoming more popular is the concept of the legion of selves. The idea that we are a multiplicity of entities out of which the sense of self-identity emerges. A similar idea exists in some tantric philosophies. The approach, and by the way, that ellipses there is talking about Shiva. In some tantric philosophies. The approach is to identify the different selves and give them all, as your situation befits, a turn at being the one which is the seat of identity. And seat is in quotes. It can be helpful to define a number of distinct personalities which you can flip in and out of as the need arises. It's exactly what I was talking about in that ritual magic video. Literally exactly. Lisa, when I read through chaos material, I felt the word chaos was not the best descriptive word due to how we use it in society. To me, it actually felt closer to the concept of true balance. I definitely agree that chaos is not the right word. It doesn't feel right. I know why they use it, because it's so rooted in chaos science and chaos math. And these things all sort of emerged around the same time. I get why they use it, but I actually don't. I agree with you, Lisa. I don't think it's a good term. True balance is interesting. I like that. But yeah, maybe we need to rename it. We'll have a poll. Let's rename chaos magic. What should we call it? So yeah, many selves. Exactly what I was talking about. Another thing that I found. Invocation and drama. Quote, invocation and acting. If you watch the live stream, you know that I have a deep history with that. Invocation and acting have a lot in common. Indeed, it is sometimes appropriate to think of ritual invocation as a performance aimed at the entity you are attempting to invoke. If you put on a good performance, you will be rewarded. Watch actors. Look at their posture, use of gesture, and voice. These three abilities are powerful ways of communicating nuances of mood and expression and play a key role in the theater of magic. I kind of just went down my whiskey after that because, boy, that hit me like a cannonball in the chest. Yeah, the theater of magic. We're going to come back to all of these. I know I'm going through these last few quickly, but we're going to do a wrap up. Everyone put your suggestions for renaming chaos magic in the comments. Mask magic. Quote, in modern Western culture, masks are reduced to objects of art. At best, they are used as disguises. In surviving shamanic cultures, however, masks are considered to be extremely powerful magical weapons. Some African tribes, for example, keep their masks locked away. Some Polynesian masks are carved with the eyes looking downward so they cannot stare directly at onlookers. As a magical object, the purpose of the mask is to drive out the individual's personality and allow a spirit to take over. It is not so much that you wear the mask, but that the mask wears your body. Sounds a whole lot like constructs to me. A whole lot like archetype. A whole lot like dawning things. This is a brief sampling of some of my work in the past. On the left there, you're seeing the poster for my first play. Note the character in the poster. The play is called White People. I didn't write it. Note the character wearing the white mask. Beside it, you see the poster for Sarah and the Animals, my first short film, and you see some stills from that movie on the right side. Note all the characters wearing masks. I own a few masks. I've always been fascinated with masks. It's always been deeply woven into me. I blame Goosebumps and the haunted mask. When I read this bit about masks and Condensed Chaos, it deeply, deeply resonated with me because clearly I have been using masks in my creative work without really, this play, White People, doesn't even have masks in it. It just felt right for this thing. I've been using masks in a lot of creative work for a long time. It's long been my dream, you know, when you're at the coffee shop late at night with your friends and you all talk about what you would do if you were rich. Mine has always been, I would have a mask room. That's definitely like a thing I've always wanted, is a room where just the whole wall, the entire room, masks everywhere. Yeah, I deeply resonate with this idea of masks and mask magic. So, tying it all together, this being the last stream of 2020, where I'm headed in 2021. I still am deeply interested in the Golden Dawn and reading more about it. Mostly the correspondence work. I think the correspondences as laid out in the Golden Dawn texts are foundational for me. I'm not sure that they are for everyone, but for me it seems like having a bedrock from which to grow that is based on a magical tradition that is well rooted in the Western esoteric tradition seems like the best way to establish a foundation. The next, servitor work for lower magic. I really like what happened with my servitor work. I really did. I like that it was unpredictable. I like that what I got was what I needed and not what I wanted. I like being humbled a little bit by my deity work, especially for low magic, especially for will-based magic, especially for bringing things to me that I want. I like thinking that you can craft things that are out there doing your work and bringing you things that are in your best interest, not necessarily what you want. Because if you're anything like me, what I want is seldom what I need. It's almost exactly the opposite most of the time. Meditation, daily ritual practice for higher magic. I've been a big advocate of this for a while. Meditation, exercise. I fast for pretty much half the day, every day, as part of this. There's daily stuff that I do. I always engage with some fantastic reality every day. That can be a video game, it can be a novel, it can be a movie, it doesn't matter, but it's kind of a rule I have set for myself. Every day I have to spend some amount of time engaged in a reality that is wholly distinct from my own and transports me to another place. It's important for me. So having a list of disciplined, regimented, but fluid tasks that I do on the daily that are meant to keep me open, meant to keep me receptive, meant to keep me listening to divinity. That's a big part of it. I don't know that I necessarily need to do too many, right now anyway, I don't know that I necessarily need to focus too much on higher magic rituals as ceremonial magic, distinct from daily stuff. For me, the daily stuff is really working. Drama as a magical act, meaning both ritual as art and art as ritual. Both ways, right? You do your art ritualistically and your ritual artistically. I'm getting so good at pacing my whiskey. And identification, promotion, and creation of many selves via mask work. The big thing I've been struggling with since the original magic video is how to engage in this archetypal self sort of based magic. We transitioned. We're back. In a way that's actually workable, in a way that's useful, and not it's so important to me that it's not didactic, because I want to share it, which means that, it can't just be me putting on a costume for the sake of putting on a costume. It's not good enough. There has to be something else going on, something deeper. And after reading this bit in Condensed Chaos and just looking back at my own body of artistic work and my sensibilities, mask magic seems like the way forward for me in exploring these multiple selves, this legion of selves. I really like that term. And doing it in a way that is artistically fulfilling, creatively fulfilling, and also spiritually rewarding, and can bring back to this neutral self the things that I'm looking to find. So one of my big 2021 goals now is that I want to get into mask making as a ritual practice, as an artistic practice, as a creative practice. I want to start donning the walls with these masks, and I want to start walking around the world with these masks and using them as outward external manifestations of internal processes, of internal exploration, letting the masks becoming, oh, I'm so glad to hear that, something greater still, letting the masks become a manifestation of this journey of selves plural exploration that I'm currently embarking upon. So in 2021, you can expect a lot of that sort of stuff from this stream. Again, we got the audio series coming up January 15th. You won't see me live until 2021. So I just want to say to close this out, I know we've only been doing these live streams for like a few Fridays now, but it is really, I really look forward to it. I really, really do. It feels like talking to friends, weird friends and family and people I care about. So thank you for checking this out. Thank you for checking out the channel in general. I hope you consider checking out tickets to the audio series. It's one of the coolest things I've ever done, and I really want as many people there to have fun and be weird and be excited about it as me. Please send me questions, comments, and all that stuff. Joel@ToSalem.com. We'll see you again live in 2021. I hope you have a fantastic Yule or Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever you're celebrating. If you're anything like me, you're not going to be able to go to where your family is this year. And that is hard. It's hard. It's hard. I'm struggling with it. If you're struggling with it, know that, my response is in my home, we're just making this the most extravagant, fun. We're buying a bunch of stuff. We're living a little bit more carefree than we usually do to just use consumerism to kill the pain. And so far it's doing just fine. So maybe try that. It's horrible advice, but that's what we're doing. I know a lot of other people are too. We're just embracing that spirit this year because it's tough. There's no replacement for seeing the people you love. There really isn't. And I'm gonna miss it. If you're feeling that same pain, my heart goes out to you. Yeah, something greater. Let's keep eating cookies. I will check out Keith Johnstone Impro. I'll check that out for sure. For sure. I'm also a cookie person. I'll check that out. Thank you for the tip. I definitely need reading material over the holidays. I love you all. I really deeply do. This has been a crazy good year for ToSalem, a crazy good year for me personally. Such a transformative time. Thank you all for being here. From the bottom of my heart, I love you, I love you, I love you. I hope the rest of this year is beautiful for you. I can't wait to see you in 2021. Thank you. You're the absolute best. I wish I could stay here all day and just keep talking to you, but I can't. I love you. Thank you. Have a good rest of the year. I'll see you guys in 2021. Until next time, my glass is empty, but I got a little bit of sip in there. Stay weird, witches. Here's to you. Here's to Salem. I'll see you next time. Mwah. Bye, everybody. Bye. Thank you.